Hey, what's up, everybody? So, today I'm going to discuss fuel consumption. I've been having some conversations with some other drivers in regards to how I manage to keep my fuel costs down. So, today I'm going to share with you a few tips and tricks that I personally utilize, and it's been very helpful so far with me keeping the costs down and saving some money. So, without further ado, when I am assigned a load, one of the very first things that I do is I go onto my dash, I go to the home menu, and I go to where trip 1 and trip 2 is. So the reason why it only shows 1 mile is because I just reset this. But usually what I do is when I get the load, I go in here, I go to trip 1, and I hold the OK button to reset and set that as 0. That will automatically reset number 2. So this will allow me to be able to see how many miles per gallon I'm getting based upon the particular trip that I'm running based on that leg. So I'll drive to my shipper. Most of the time, by the time I get to the shipper, I'm at like 9 or 10 something, depending upon how far away the shipper is. And I'll reset it once again after I leave the shipper. Once I've left the shipper, I will no longer reset trip number 1. I will only reset trip 2. And that's because trip 1 will always remain set to show me what my miles per gallon is for the entire trip. And I only reset trip 2 usually when I stop. So say, for example, I've driven 350 miles and I plan on shutting down for the night. That next morning before I leave, I'm going to reset trip number 2. The reason for me doing this is because the entire time that I'm driving, I'm constantly going back and forth and occasionally checking trip 2 to see what my miles per gallon is while I'm driving. As I see it starting to lower, it means I need to slow myself down, because what's happening is, based upon the weight, with me trying to drive at a faster speed, I'm consuming more fuel. So I will slow myself down once I get to a terrain that allows me to start picking up on my miles per gallon and increasing how much fuel, decreasing the amount of fuel consumption I'm utilizing to get more miles per gallon. Then I might speed myself back up. So that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm slowing down and speeding up based on the terrain and based on how the fuel is being consumed during that leg. That works out really well for me. Next, everybody should know how many gallons of fuel they have on their truck when their tanks are full. I know that I have 2 100-gallon fuel tanks on this truck. So that gives me 200 gallons of fuel when I'm full. What I actually personally like to do is I like to pretend as though I only have 150 gallons of fuel when this truck is fueled to the max. And what that allows me to do is, when I'm looking at the fuel gauge, I know exactly how many gallons that I have based on the math of me pretending as though I have 150 gallons. So if I break up 150 gallons by 8, I'm looking at 18.75 gallons of fuel per eighth of a tank. Now, I take that 18.75, I multiply that by 7. The reason why I'm doing 7 is because 7 is the worst miles per gallon I will ever get, usually when I'm doing like a lot of climbing and things like that. And as I get closer to my destination, that starts to change and improve because the terrain changes. I'm adjusting my speed accordingly. So if you multiply that 18.75 by 7, you're looking at 131.25, so 131 miles per eighth of a tank. Knowing that is very key to knowing how you can utilize your fuel and knowing when you can fuel up. Now, this last part is specifically for prime drivers. I'm sure some of you have some other tools that you can utilize to do this as well, so you can somewhat apply this to you. Now, Prime has a system in place where we can submit a command via our QC to request the best fueling based upon where our destination is and based on the route that the QC thinks we're going to go. It will send us a message, let us know what the fuel station is, what that price would be after taxes and things like that, and after discounts, and what we're ultimately paying for the cost of fuel. What I like to do, and the reason why, is because sending that command doesn't necessarily mean it's the best fuel station. Now, hear me out. The reason why is because, if I recall correctly, they stated that it will not allow you to get any less than either a quarter of a tank or an eighth of a tank of fuel. Now, I'm going to have to confirm which one it is, but either way, it's not going to let you get too low on fuel. It's not going to have you running with the E-light. It's going to make sure that you're fueling up before your fuel light comes on. So, with that being said, since I do a lot of trip planning, not just utilizing the QC, but my personal GPS based on certain routes, sometimes I'll completely ignore the QC altogether and drive another route because I know that the QC is going to send me on, let's say, I-68 in Maryland, and I'm going to be doing up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain. I ain't trying to do all that, because by the time I get back to 70, I done burnt all that fuel that I just saved my money on. So I will look at where it's suggesting me to go. If that is the best solution, I will look at how many miles it will take me to get there, how much fuel I have. Based on how much fuel I have, I know how many miles that I can actually drive, because remember, I'm doing 150, not 200, which means regardless if I max out that drive, I know I still have enough fuel to get where I'm going. And what I will do is I will go, okay, is this the best fuel stop along the route? And sometimes it is. Sometimes there's actually a better fuel station that I can go to and save a couple cents per gallon, just a little bit up the ways, but the QC is not going to tell me to do that because it's trying to make sure that I don't go below a certain point when it comes to my fuel. But I know that I actually can make said trip to that location. So I will actually drive the additional distance to go a little bit further and then stop and fuel there. By me consistently doing this, this allows me to save money. Over time, those cents become dollars, and $1 becomes 10, 10 becomes 50, 50 becomes 100. So over time, you end up saving a lot of money. And sometimes you can end up with the compensation that you get for the discounts and stuff like that for fuel. You can end up actually making a little bit of a profit. So these are just some of the tricks that I personally utilize. Hopefully they help you all. Anyways, it's been fun. I'll catch up with y'all later. Peace. Make sure you click that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. It helps the channel, helps get these videos out to people who it could be beneficial to.